Number 7. Bariaru. A lot of the reasons why I like this monster so much have to do with the same reasons why I like Kurapeko. Unique Son mechanics, the capability to buff and heal itself, as well as even going further beyond the point of full-on part restoration if it is allowed to. Also, the fact that he has a hunting horn made manifest as a giant whale monster with a symbiotic relationship with Barnacle is honestly just amazing and hilarious. His unique stats of confusion also adds quite a bit of humor to this monster, due to how your hunter can just randomly pull up any number of emotes to suddenly act upon in the middle of battle. Popo's attacks are also a mix of weird yet simple, as many basic movements such as tail slams and swings, hand slams, and head bonks play into that part of the body and what instrument it is based off of. Like how there's the cool little detail on whenever the tail is against the ground, that the bottom collides with the top like a bass drum. As with any monster, however, you gotta be careful, as some attacks such as the ground quakes and body slams are really dangerous due to their range as well as the potential for massive damage, especially if he is buffed up with attack. Trust me, it's honestly ridiculous the boost he gets. That big slam basically turns into a one-shot. You've got to be careful. And on another note, that whale surfacing attack, especially on the background unique render he has, is just so cool. Popo, in summary, is just such a ridiculous and weird monster, with his design, attacks, theming, and more, that you just can't help but love him. I can't help but imagine, though, all the noise complaints he gets. Ugh. Number 6. Odibatorasu. While I've always liked the concept of the Flying Wyvern Brethren and how they managed to be one of the most dangerous threats around despite not being elders, I'm afraid that's as far as that appreciation can go. Aka's fight is like if you gave a super amped up Tiggy steroids and then mixed that cocktail in with a Roar wind tunnel that reaches almost the entire arena, meaning that it has all the same problems I have with Tiggy. Uka, meanwhile, is much more bearable, but still falls into a trap of monotony due to how often he loves to dig and swim after somebody. But leave it to the Trio Master to be the best out of them all. Right out of the gate, his appearance and unveiling to the public screams intimidation to me way more than a Cantor. Showing off power scale by defeating a high-ranking monster? Check. Large and intimidating on an honestly insane level? Yes sirree. Power to manipulate sand and push it around? Anakin's worst nightmare. Gigantic shell that also functions as a cannon? Yep. Thanos Chin? Now this is an Avengers level threat. And boy howdy can he back up that appearance with power. What I love about this battle is that at no point does it remain static. For a lot of monsters, especially gigantic monsters, there's usually a prevailing strategy to victory. Most commonly, stay under at some other point for most of the battle and you are good to go. Meanwhile with Odiba, you can't really do that. Staying under him can be safe for some attacks, but because of how massive he is, the camera won't be able to get a good angle on him for much of his movements. You can't just stay by the tail due to quakes, slams, and more from it, and staying stationary anywhere else for the rest of the battle will still put you in the way of the rest of his attacks, and especially the fire from his cannon. The trick with Odiba is to identify which attack is being performed and correspond it to the action that needs to be taken. You aren't just turtling around or under a giant tank for 25 minutes like with other monsters. You are exploiting every weak point and blind spot within his arsenal depending on the situation. You know that certain parts are more safe than others and that you need to get some damage in, but you also know that there's a time when you just need to book it. Especially with that special Enrage Roar. That shit is a killer. Oh, and also can we talk about that damn theme? So good. Number 5. Shantien. The embassy of majestic destruction certainly doesn't disappoint when it comes to presentation. That's for sure. Everything down to the simple Leviathan design, to the coloration and power, and even the environment you fight it in, portrays the majesty of this legend. A majesty that could very well be seen as taboo due to its disastrous strength. And these themes can be very well seen present in the battle, which I've already talked about before in a previous countdown, but to summarize, every step of this battle is the progression in a melody, the lulling beginning that assumes nothing out of the player, only to ramp up as you gradually anger the beast into releasing its power, the weather growing more dire and cataclysmic. Realizing this is life or death, the battle and music crescendos into its climax as the beast brings down the airship, stranded in a volcanic belt, left only with the monster. The fate of the world practically feels like it's in your hand, as you cannot allow the beast and its power to escape alive. And as you prove your strength to the monster, it goes out in an ironic but somber blaze of glory as it dies by an overload of power. The fight and progression tells a story naturally shown and emphasized through gameplay and music. By the time you reach Phase 4, it is nothing like Phase 1 ever was. The battle also emphasizes the importance of control. As Shantien has the upper hand of the environment, you will have to utilize every tool you can to defeat him. From the Gon in the first free phase to get him back onto the ground and knocked out of an attack, to the binders that have to be used in Phase 3 to get him back onto the airship, to even the capability of using sonic bombs to nullify a heat aura in Phase 4, whose damage makes Lunastra blush in jealousy. It is a spectacle from start to finish, and I couldn't ask for anything more from this monster. Number 4. Zerureusu. This honestly has to be a miracle. Finally, after five generations worth of shitty color reskins and forms, we get a Rathalos that has the decency to actually be good. Oh, and not just that, but actually an amazing fight. And it all starts with one simple fact. He almost, if never, flies! That's right, people. No more bullshit roar stun into wind press, fireball, and rage combos. No more stalling for time and boredom. No more never-ending combos. No more wind press at all, and no more fireballs and breaths. Instead, with this boy right here, you gain access to an all-new, never-before-seen element in the form of light, brand new attacks and movements, a heavenly and surprisingly calm theme for the fight, and a mechanic involving armoring and defending parts of the body upon entering Phase 2 that are more targeted by hunters. This mechanic gives Zeru all new attacks and armor pertaining to that spot, forcing hunters to refocus their efforts on a different part to get optimal damage, all while Zeru tries to evolve to your adaptation by swapping over the armor from where it was previously to wherever priority is on now. And all of it is balanced out by Zeru being able to only armor one spot and having to wait until a damage threshold is reached in order to armor that spot. Just as Zeru evolves around you, so too must you and your group if you wish to prevail. Just hot damn! All that effort and quality poured into a Rathalos cousin of all things. Difficulty that doesn't come from annoyance or boredom, but rather the actual progression within this battle. I love you, Frontier. Number 3. Abiorugu. I never thought I'd see the day where I'd honestly be liking a Tigrex, but, well, here it is. And who knew that all it took was not making his defining trait being charging and having actual telegraphs for it. Once again, like with Bronze Spinus, the potential of tremendous power and speed is limited and accounted for by the fact that Dio is basically charge-based. And I don't just mean that in regards to how he functions, but also quite literally. To do any sort of attack, Dio will need to charge a specific part of the body, with each body part being charged and their own separate animation representing a different attack that will be performed. For example, both back legs with them kicking will represent a run that he will soon initiate, or how if both limbs on one side of his body are glowing, then he will move to that side and end it off by chucking 3 boulders at you. This is honestly fantastic, not just for giving a distinct look and feel to set him apart from other relatives, but also for giving unique visual cues that players can easily identify and isolate from one another given time and practice. What balances this monster out even more is that while he may look heavily armored like a Spinus, he actually really isn't. Certain body parts definitely are, such as the back legs, but the forearms, head, and tail are all easily pierced by most weapons, and can even have the armor be chipped off of him. And with that armor chipped, you can start dealing some crazy damage due to how vulnerable his flesh underneath is. Theoretically, this could lead to the potential of Dio getting stun locked and flinched to death, sure. I have had several occasions where we have flinch locked him multiple times in a row, but once again, it is all ironed out by the risk-reward idea the fight encourages through his Nova. This is easily, without a doubt, the strongest attack he has, and not only does it deal high amounts of damage, but also in the process reattaches all parts of his body that may have been chipped. However, it takes a while to actually complete, meaning that he is left open and exposed, especially if you've already chipped parts of him. And if you cash in and succeed at your gamble, you not only get free damage, but also get to keep your progress in regards to his body. Is it very heavily influenced by Zinogre? Yes, definitely. But is that a bad thing? No, certainly not. And that is all fine by me. Number 2. Bariaru. How funny is it that in both the original and new version of this list that this monster just keeps landing in the penultimate spot, eh? And look, I absolutely love this monster. My favorite normal monster by far in Frontier. There's a reason why he's this high in the first place, after all. Thing is that there's just, honestly, no way he can even compete with my number 1 candidate, but we'll get to that when we get to that. If I had to summarize in one word why I like Bariaru so much besides just the appearance and concept behind him, it would be slippery. The movements and fluidity of this monster is honestly some of the cleanest work I have ever seen, and it helps so much in emphasizing the speed and force behind so many of his actions. Every drag, every turn and knot feels powerful and smooth, having different variations of a style within each and every single one of his attacks that tell the player what is coming next and what needs to be done. And it feels even better when taken into consideration that his concept isn't just surface level, but executed down to his basic movements and what lampreys actually do, as well as, of course, his unique mechanic. All of this incorporates itself into the fight in order to create a feeling of creeping, unnerving speed and lethality that perfectly describes Bariaru. One minute he'll be doing the typical Ignactor beam and slow whip drags, and then the next he'll fling his tongue so fast and hard that it basically does a Virgil judgment cut, leaving blood in ripples in its wake. It feels so good not only to witness this dance, but also to partake in the action yourself, bobbing and weaving through all the twists and turns, countering and evading from all distances, and ultimately making the beast succumb to your control. This is, without a doubt, the monster that I had the most consistent fun with in the entire game, and I am so proud he lived up to the expectations. But while I may love this monster so much, there is one more contestant whose experience to me is unrivaled. Shall we find out? And finally, number 1, Zerureusu. Was there honestly any doubt about this monster landing near the top? Subject both to the number 1 spot of the respective elders list, as well as having an entire video of us defeating him, it should be no wonder why I love this monster so much. But, because I have to fill my countdown quota of overly long and dragged out explanations, I'll go ahead and do so for a second time. Zerureusu delivers not only an excellent design, music, and inspiration, but also an awe-inspiring fight that can only be described as one for the history books. The atmosphere and presence given off by Guan is terrifying and dread-filled. Witnessing this massive fortress of gargantuan proportions by the ancient Civ be controlled and dominated by a tyrant, who upon the highmost pillar of the wall builds a throne for others to grovel before, accentuates a presence of overwhelming control and power. This is, in all intents and purposes, a ruler, not just one nicknamed as such, but a proper, bona fide conqueror who has toppled entire strongholds of power that once held the most advanced and powerful civilization in the world, and has made an entire army of smaller drakes to serve his beck and call. And now you've just stepped into his domain, ready to destroy that throne of his. A storm is approaching, and you have little chance of surviving. Zerureusu's attack and power also help emphasize the dread looming over you, as Guan is relentless, brutal, but efficient in his strikes. You are such an insignificant ant to him that he is even willing to let his minions in on the party and carry off a stage for a one-shot. You are just a mortal. What chance do you think you have to stand against him? But you and your team show off the power you possess, how you will not go silently into the night, and you show him you are not to be messed with. And then he begins trying. He sees the credible threat you pose to his rule, and he will not let that stand. Despair becomes manifest as the last traces of sunlight and hope, barely visible within the fortress, darken and dissipate. You have truly angered him, and with his full power unleashed, all of his minions flee and run for their lives. Only the strongest will survive, and this battle will not be easy. He becomes faster, stronger, more brutal and efficient, no longer relying on anything else to hold him back. But you remain steadfast, rushing forth headstrong into the heart of battle, even as draconic judgment rains down. Blow for blow, you counter, evade, parry, and trade with each other, perhaps suffering losses on the way. The foe realizes the end is approaching, and in denial, pulls off his last two trump cards to dispose of you for good. Yet even still, you persist, and eventually, it ends. Hope and victory shines down upon you through the clouds as it all clears away, and your rival, for the past 15 minutes and potentially more, finally goes down in an acceptance. His reign over. I know all of that sounds overdramatic and something I put in the script just to sound cool, but all of this is honestly what the fight represents to me, and embodies a core principle of Monster, just like with Nurg. The uncertainty of victory, the intensity of the challenge ahead, the overwhelming odds that are determined to crush you again and again until you submit in defeat. The glimmer of hope that peeks through the dark clouds, the determination of getting back up, the process of recognition and learning, the application of skills and knowledge to properly respond, fighting again and again and again to the very last breath until you claim victory. This is what Monster Hunter stands for! This is the experience, the terror, the adrenaline, and the joy it delivers and promises to you. And I think that's why I love Frontier so much and find it so fascinating to me. It sets out on delivering on an unforgettable experience, one that even if you do not physically take part in, you are left in awe and intrigue. And to those who decide to take that ticket down, they get front row, interactive seats to the spectacle. By the end of it all, despite all the ups and downs, you are left with a grand sense of joy. It is the most video game I have ever played, delivering on all fronts and emphasizing above everything else the experience, struggle, and euphoria in playing. Is everything solid? No. But since when does anything function perfectly? At the end of the day, it focuses on one thing and one thing only. Fun. Fighting monsters like Juan isn't just fighting another meaningless behemoth in your way. It is overcoming the odds of a rival equal or superior in skill and power to you. It is survival of the fittest. And nothing can beat that experience. An experience that Frontier understood perfectly in how to execute. An experience that will and already has impacted the main series. Just look no further than Iceborne with the amount of ideas and concepts it borrows and reimagines from Frontier. The future of Monster is looking brighter than ever. And maybe, just maybe, at some point in the near future and beyond, something will finally live up to the legacy left by Frontier. Maybe a monster or two finally makes it into the main series after so long. Maybe something more. The future is uncertain, but whatever it holds, I look forward to meeting it. I have been the Monarch of Dragons, and farewell, old friend.